everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today is a very special day. We are going to install something I've been waiting for a long time for. I've been saving up for this for a while because they are a little pricey. But this is a T90 3-speed Saturn Overdrive. This came from Walks 4x4. Very fast shipping, affordably priced, and good quality. This is how it's going to come to you. Here's your shifter and your linkages. Now, guys and gals, I've never installed an overdrive before. There's a lot of wonderful how-to videos out there. Advanced Adapters has one, and also Willie's Metal Shaper. Brian, he put a video up of this as well. But basically what this video is going to be is showing you how simple it is or how difficult it is for a regular guy like me with simple hand tools to put this unit in your vehicle. I'm going to go through some information on this overdrive unit. So if you all are familiar with overdrives and you know how they work, go ahead and skip ahead to this part of the video. Right here, I'll put the time mark right here for you. So you can skip ahead through all this jibber jabber of explaining to people what this overdrive is and how it works. So basically, if you want to cut to the footage of installing this unit, go to this mark right here and get started right there. But otherwise, if you have no idea what this unit is or how it works, stick around for the next couple minutes and I'll explain it to you. If you're not familiar with this is a 29-tooth overdrive. Where does it say? Oh, I think it's on this side. It says right here. What you need to do when you want to order an overdrive is you need to pull off the access cover of the transfer case. It's 5 bolts. Pull that cover off and you count the teeth. I'll put a picture in right now. And what you're going to do is you're going to count all those teeth and you're going to make sure there's a 26 tooth and a 29 tooth. I think, is there a 27, guys? I can't remember. But anyway, there's a 26 and a 29. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure you order this overdrive that matches that planetary. It's very, very important. If you don't, it's not going to mess up with your intermediate shaft gear, and it's just not going to work at all. So you need to, before you order this thing, definitely do your research and pull that diff cover or that housing cover plate off. You're not going to lose any oil. You'll ruin the gasket if there was one there. In my case, the paper gasket was long gone. And order your overdrive. Now, this overdrive was a little over $1,000 shipped to me, which is a little salty. I shouldn't say it's salty, it's a little pricey, but from what I understand, it's a very, very worthwhile investment. Now, what this does, if you're not familiar with what an overdrive does, the T90 transmission basically is a 3-speed transmission that came in these early Jeeps. It's first, second, third, and if you've driven one, first to second's okay, but second to third's a long gap. So if you're pulling any long hills in this little F-head 4-cylinder, you're kind of hunting second gear, you're screaming in a wide open throttle. On third gear, you're lugging. You're lugging the motor and you don't have enough oomph. So what this does is this splits all your gears. It gives you a 25% better, I guess what's the right term, guys? Gear reduction, whatever you want to call it. So basically it turns a 3-speed into a 6-speed. You got first, high and low, second, high and low, and third, high and low. So that's how this works. Basically, it bolts right in place of that planetary. It works just like your transmission does. It's all synchronized. It works with your clutch, and it all works seamlessly, just like it would from the factory. This was a very popular addition to these early Jeeps before the later transmissions came out, and with the 4 speeds and the overdrives in the 70s and everything. So T90 is a great transmission, very robust transmission, very small transmission, but I think this is actually rated to hold up to 300 horsepower, actually. So if you have your T90 behind like a small block Chevy or 4.3, something like that, if you have adapt, I guess you can't even adapt to 4.3. I don't know. I never looked into that. So you have a T90 behind something a little more power than the stock F-head or L-head, it will hold it. Okay. With all that being said, let's go right ahead. I got my knife here. Let's get her opened up. Okay, with everything unboxed, this is what you're going to have in your kit. This will be your shifter linkage right here. As you can see, the top has overdrive written on it. You're going to have your retaining ring here for your shifter boot and your hardware, your spacers for your transmission, the instructions and what's included on there for the shifter linkage. And here's my little leather shift boot. Also comes with, here's the instructions. This is your actual manual, your gasket, step-by-step how to do this here. It's very clear, it's very straightforward, and I'm actually gonna use this gasket and a little bit of RTV. Let me show you what I use. It's actually made for, I guess, quote-unquote gear oil, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it's silver, and it's really nice stuff. You wait 24 hours, and it sets up. And I used it on my differentials. If you watch that video, I'll put a link up in the corner up here for you to that video where I put gaskets on the differentials when I drained and flushed those. And I had leaks. Used this. I haven't had a leak since. So we'll use that. But you also get in your kit here the special star washer. Right here, sorry, the star washer and the retaining ring and the oil scoop. And then moving on to the actual unit, this is what's gonna be seen on the back of the transfer case. This is where the shifter lever linkage goes. And this is the planetary. This is when we get into the transfer case here in a little bit and actually open it up. This is what's going to replace the planetary that's in there. But then here, spin this guy around. Very important, this stays in the position where it is, the red bolt. Comes all gasketed, closed up. A little bit of thread sealant on the threads, and here is what meshes up with this guy here. Now this comes packed in grease so that this little gear in here stays, I forget the actual term guys, I apologize, but it stays in place there. It's packed in grease to keep it, but if for some reason it would come out, I will note this, if for some reason this little, get you in here a little closer, little brass ring would come out, there's 3 dogs, 1, 2, 3 inside of there. And if you watch Advanced Adapters video on this, they're a little more clear on it. I don't foresee this popping out, but if for some reason it would, when you go to mate these two together, when this here goes against the transfer case, that's going to hold that off over here, and you're not going to be able to get it to get back till you have like a 1/4 inch gap. And if you try to force it, you'll break something and you'll be very upset because you're going to be ordering parts for a brand new overdrive you haven't even been able to use yet. So anyway, those are some things I know and that I've been doing some research on myself. The other thing we're going to do is when this is inside, I'll show you then. I'll show you a tool you're going to have to use. When this is in the whole way and inside here where the washer, get some light here for you, where the washer and the snap ring go. These are some of the tools you're going to have to use to do this project. First, you're going to need yourself a set of snap ring pliers for this guy right here, or a simple set of needle nose pliers will do. But this is like 20 bucks for this set. Been wanting a set for a while to replace some of these crappy ones I have. So got a set of those. And the other thing you're gonna need is this right here. If you don't have one, this actually wasn't that expensive. I bought one on Amazon. I'll use it for a lot of different things. But what you're gonna do is when you get this guy put in the transfer case to replace the planetary, and you actually have the nut back on, the snap ring back, the washer and the snap ring in, what you're gonna wanna do is check the back of the case from the back of the case to this point right here, that bottom point there. And it'll make sense later in the video. But to do that, we're going to use this gauge right here. It's like a depth gauge. It's a digital depth gauge. And what that'll do is actually measure how far that protrudes from the back of the transfer case. And like I said, later in this video, I'll explain that to you and it'll make more sense. But it can't stick out any more than, what is it guys? It's 0.677. So just want to get everything laid out here and show you what all is in the kit and what all is needed to install this unit. With that being said, let's get underneath the Jeep and let's get started. Alrighty, first thing we're gonna do is put the transmission in reverse. And I'm actually gonna put this in lead range as well. We're gonna take the shift tower, take the cover off here, and also I pulled this cover off over here. That is where the twin sticks would come up through on a regular transmission and transfer case on a Willys. But since I have the floor shift, it's a blank plate. And this actually is a tuxedo park, so this didn't actually come factory with a T90 on the floor. It would have been up here on the column, but somebody changed that out somewhere a long time ago to the floor shift, which I'm totally cool with. Anyway, first step, take that off, this off, and put it in reverse, and let's go underneath the Jeep. Okay, now we're underneath here. Here's my e-brake. Here's the rear drive shaft. And here is the access cover that we're going to pull. And that is the back of the transfer case here. So I'm gonna get the light set up here for you and pull this guy off. These are 9/16, 5 9/16 bolts. As you can see, there, 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 and there, all the way around. Bolt is removed, take the cover off, and in there is the planetary. So now the next step is we're going to pull this cotter pin and take this nut off of the output shaft and slide that get light right here. Slide that out of here. Let's grab a needle nose pliers and get this cotter pin out and get a socket and get that out of there. All right, cotter pin is out. Now we'll get a socket and get on there and find out what size that nut is right there on the holding the planetary onto the output shaft. I'll take my socket here, and my nut in there, if you can see it, is 1 5/16". I'm gonna have it adapted down here from 3/4 to 1/2 inch. But we're gonna get in here and get this set on loosen and go ahead, go in there. Get in here on the nut and just break it free. Okay, actually was not super tight. Get this nut on the output shaft off. Okay, so there's the nut that's holding that gear on in there. I'm gonna try to get in here. Might block your view here a little bit, but I'm gonna try to pull this gear off here. There we go. Alrighty, there's our gear. So now let's take this planetary here. As you can see, this is the side where we're going to actually, this is going to be facing us when we put it into the transfer case. This is going to go in and slide onto the output shaft and mesh up with the intermediate gear. So let's get back under the Jeep and slide this guy in place. Here's the output shaft on the transfer case that I slid that planetary gear off of. There's your intermediate gear. And this is what's going to slide, this piece right here is going to slide in on that right there. So I'll get you set up here on the GoPro and see if we can't slide this on that shaft and get her meshed up with the intermediate gear there. Alrighty, let's grab our piece here. Very carefully. Get her in there. Get it lined up. I think we're in. Okay. It's hard to see in there, but I have the slit on the output shaft and it's meshed up with the intermediate gear. And check this out, guys. Isn't that cool? Look at that. That's stinking cool. So anyway, now the goal, we're going to grab a, I believe it takes a 1/2 inch extension. And we're going to get the ratchet and get that snug down onto the output shaft in there, onto the threads. And then we're going to torque it down to spec. And I have to double check that, but get right back to you on that. Okay, we got our 1/2 inch extension into the square part of the nut in there. We're just going to tighten her down for now, get her snug, and then we'll put the torque wrench on there and take her from, it says anywhere from 100 to 120 foot-pounds. We're probably going to shoot for 120 foot-pounds. Now we got that snug down, grab the torque wrench and tighten that down. Okay, there we go. So in here, way in there, is where your 1/2 inch drive will go. That square part in there. And that's what I torqued down this unit onto the special nut in there, onto the output shaft. So now we're gonna go up here to the bench, grab the part that I've been looking forward to the least on this, and that is getting that square like retaining washer in there, and then that special snap ring. What that will do is keep that nut that I torqued down, actually went to 110 pounds, between the 100 and 120 they called for. And that will keep that from working loose and then destroying everything in the overdrive. So once I get this done and check my dimensions and make sure I'm only sticking out 0.677 of an inch. Once I know those two, I'm going to be much happier and feel much better. But yeah, let's get these installed. Here is the washer, and that's going to line up if I'm reading this right, with the recesses back in there between the spiders. And this here, the lug part, should go right up in that recess and slide right back in there. And then next will be the snap ring. So put the camera down. I'm going to try to slide this up in there and show you it in place, hopefully. As you can see, the washer is in place. I'll try to get you up in here. You see how that in there is actually sitting up in that little recess right there? Basically, you need to rotate this thing around until these spiders, these planetary spiders, are out of the way, that this thing actually gets back in place. And maybe you can see that little tiny groove in there, and that is where the retaining ring is going to go. So this washer, once you torque this nut down, that washer is going to go and sit in that little recess right there, and then the snap ring will go in place in that machine groove all around the edge there, right there. And that will keep this from working itself loose over time. So let's go grab the snap ring and get that in there. Here is the snap ring. I got my snap ring pliers here. A pair of sharp needle nose pliers will do too. But this is where they say, do not compress it past that point. That's all the further you want to compress it. You don't want to go too far, because if you do, it'll basically ruin the spring in this snap ring and it won't be any good. So let's go underneath the Jeep there and get this in place. I don't think I'll get this on video just because it's gonna be hard to get in there, but I'll show you once it's in place. Okie dokie, everybody. Let's get you zoomed in here. I got the, got the snap ring in place in there, seated in the groove. It was really hard to show you that on camera, so I just didn't. Sorry. But the washer's in there, the snap ring is in there, and basically what that does is hold that nut in there from coming loose. So as you can see, here, let me show you, I can zoom back in here. As I turn it, see the spider gears here and that lock washer. This is the part I was most nervous for, just because it's so important that that doesn't come loose, because you can imagine if that washer and that retaining snap ring would come loose, what it would do to all those spider gears and everything in the transfer case here in the overdrive. So yeah, very important. Take your time. I use my snap ring pliers. Let me zoom back out here. I use these guys right here. You can use a needle nose, but I used these right here, snap ring pliers, the pointy tips. Like I showed you earlier, got the set. So anyway, now that's in place and that's torqued down and all in. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna see how far out this sticks from the face of the transfer case. So we're gonna measure from this point to this point, and it needs to be, this needs to be right in here, from here to here, needs to be 0.677. So that's where our gauge is going to come into play to check that. So let's grab that and check her out. Okay, got her zeroed out, and I already did this before and double checked it, but I'm going to show you guys. Basically, this is going to measure from here, this point right here. So you can see this is going to sit on there, and then this square part up here, right here, will sit against this piece. So let's take this and lay her on there. Okay, so we are at 0.672 off the tail of this from here to there. So that is perfect, 0.672. You don't want to stick out any more than 0.677. Alrighty, next step is I got the back end jacked up off the ground here a little bit. What we're going to do is put the transfer case in gear, which I have it in gear, 4-wheel low with the front hubs unlocked, transmission in neutral, and we're going to check down here as we spin the rear wheels and see if we have any binding or if there's any binding under here. Let me get underneath here and show you. Okay, I don't hear or feel any binding as I spin the tires. So I would say we're good to proceed. On to the next step. Now we got the housing right here. Got the actual casing here. And make sure this red bolt stays right here with that red sealing washer. And make sure that, like I said earlier, this ring is set in here where it's packed in grease. Then we're going to take the oil scoop right here, and it's actually curved, so you cannot put this in backwards. And we're going to take this, one hand here, and slide it in place, just like so, until it stops. And what that'll do is provide, through this channel here, proper lubrication into the actual overdrive unit itself. Do not forget to put that in there. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to grab my gasket here. This is probably, out of the whole kit, is probably the most important part right here to go on the dash. Anyway, I'm going to grab this, and it does say in the instructions here to use a little bit of silicone. What I'm going to do is use this gasket maker right here. And a lot of people say, oh no, just use the gasket. Oh no, just use the sealant. Well, I'm going to use the gasket maker and the gasket. And I'm going to smear it all over each side of this and make sure we get a good seal. Okay, hopefully you guys can see that. Here we go. See what happens. This in the whole way, just like that. Awesome. Hey, she's in. Let's just go back here to these bolts, and we'll get them all started, and then we'll torque them down to 30 foot-pounds. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there she is. She is bolted up to the back of the transfer case, and all these bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, are all torqued down to 30 foot-pounds and good to go. Now, the next step, we're going to go up here and take this little lock nut off there and pull this off, this little silicone dude here, and get on to mounting up our shifter linkage. So this part's done. We got everything torqued down, everything mounted in place. We're gonna let the silicone and everything seal for 24 hours before we put any fluid into this case. So that all sets up. I do have the gasket in between, plus I put that RTV on either side of the gasket just to help seal it. Not a lot, not that it's gonna mush inside. If anything, let it mush out like it is right here. That way it doesn't get into the case. But oil scoops in, that's all together. Let's move on to the shifter linkage. So here's a good indication of what I gotta do here for the mounting this lever. This here is the overdrive, and this is that piece that comes off the back that engages and disengages the overdrive. I just pulled that little tube piece off, and I'm gonna try to use that existing hole where the twin sticks would come out through. I don't know it's gonna hold out without modifying this arm, but we'll give it a shot. So let's get underneath the Jeep, and I'll show you the next step here. I'll get this connected and moving on from there. I have the shift linkage here bolted down to this here. Now I need to go in and actually tighten that lock nut down that holds that sucker in there. Little nut, I guess you could say it locks the threads so that this isn't doing this the whole time. So let's go up there and tighten that down. Okay, so we're in here in the Jeep. We got the shifter snuck back through. Next step is going to be taking these old bolts off the shift tower. 1 and 2. And then on the T90, this spacer is going to go here. And this spacer is going to go up here. You get new hardware and washers. And let's get that bolted down. Okay, here's our shifter. As you can see, this is our 1, 2, 3 and reverse shifter. And this is our in and out overdrive shifter. And got the spacers in place there, back and front. I'm gonna go ahead and snug them down. We're getting there, guys and gals. We're getting there. Gonna be twin stick shifting for too long. Oh yeah. Overdrive. blasted down my tunnel cover here. As you can see, this is what I'm going to cut out. This comes in the kit, the shifter part. I just bent it up a little bit to match the curve of this. Now I think there's probably 1,000 different ways you can do this, but this is how I'm going to try to do it. I'm going to cut this out right here using this guy right here. I have a couple other die grinders and different things, but I'm going to try this and go from there. Now we're in the Jeep here, and I have this piece cut out, and I have it tacked down with that bolt there and that bolt there, and I bent this piece around. It comes in the kit. You probably saw it earlier with this gasket that'll go in there, but right now I'm just mocking things up. I'm the brake clean and all that junk from cleaning off the top of this transmission tower. But I cut out my cover and ran my self tappers in that came with the kit just to mock it up so that way everything works. There's my direct drive, overdrive, and nothing binds up in there. So I think this hole here is supposed to match up with this hole, but since I don't have twin stick shifters, I got the single floor stick. This hole actually lined up with this hole right here that was in here before. That was covering the hole, the blank. That went over the hole where the two levers for the four-wheel drive would have been in a twin stick situation instead of the single stick. So as you can see, that doesn't hit the shifter, and got this all tacked down. So basically now what I'm going to do is clean this up because I just got it out of the parts, the sandblaster, and I'm going to clean this up as well. I'm definitely going to paint this black, and I'm also going to paint this shifter cane black to match this one here. And I'm going to get new hardware for these as well. These bolts here that came out, because you can see maybe right here, they're a little rusty and crusty, so might as well get some new ones over here. And actually, why don't we go over and I'll show you quick. I don't know what the threads are, so let's see here. Let's take a guess and say they're 1/4-20s. So I got my little thing here, 1/4-20. Let's see what happens. Let's try to thread it in here. Look at that. So they are 1/4-20s. So I'll run to the local hardware store once I get that painted up, and we will grab some new ones of these. But anyway, that's where I'm at right now. So let's get that pulled out and cleaned up with wax and grease remover. And I use either brake clean or this stuff right here. And we will clean that up and get her primed and painted. So while the paint's drying, we're going to go underneath here and we're going to take some gear oil and going to fill up the transfer case. I also drained the transmission as well just to flush everything out. But under here, you can see, let me take you up in here. The drain for the transfer case is right here, and the fill is over on this side. So drain, fill. Need to clean this up here a little bit. Still got some nasty crud built up in here. Gonna go ahead and loosen that up and make sure this is tight down here. Really close. Gotta make sure this is tight right down here and open this up here, and I'll show you how I get that into that point right there. This right here, it's like a soap dispenser. As you pump, it basically, you put this tube up in that fill hole and you fill it up in the side up there. So let's get underneath there and get her filled up. Alrighty, since I thought it said it did, but it did not. This did not fit on the 1 gallon jug, so I just kept reusing this container here with the funnel, filling it up and pumping it in. But I got the transmission and the transfer case both full. Nothing's leaking on the ground yet. Look at all the dirt from me scraping everything off that install there. So now we're gonna go, and the directions say to put the transmission in 3rd gear and overdrive in high. So basically your highest gear, 3rd overdrive, and the transfer case in neutral. And what that will do is actually cycle oil through the overdrive unit. And I'll do that for about 7 to 10 minutes and then stop and then recheck the level in the transfer case and add if needed, top off the transfer case. So I'm not going to show you that. It's pretty self-explanatory. Next clip you'll see is we'll probably try to start putting that cover on the transmission cover. So here we go. Okay, glad that I did that because I just went back underneath the Jeep and pulled the fill and checked it, and I got another probably went through another 6 ounces after running that oil circulating through the overdrive. Topped off another 6 ounces in the actual transfer case. Now, next thing I'm going to do is take her outside here and take her for a test drive. So, fingers crossed, there's no leaks yet. We'll see what happens. First drive with the overdrive. Gotta go on her maiden run. Got her broken in, oil topped off. So, let's go for a spin. Alrighty, so transmission cover is on. It's a little dirty from installing it, but we'll polish that up. I got to ream this hole out a little bit up here. Doesn't quite line up here with the new hardware, but grab the knob. Look at that. Got our leather shift boot here, and look at that. Cool is that? So that's all just self-tapped down with the retaining ring and the leather cover. And like I said, this is dirty from painting it and handling it. We'll clean that up once we get everything done here. Now let's work on this shifter here. Let's get this squared away. And I did put some silicone underneath this as well to try to seal it up a little bit from any fumes or anything. But look at that. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? A lot better than what it did before, which is just a rubber boot just kind of hanging out there, not even secured. So awesome.
It's all fun and games till Daddy cuts his finger.
Can't even really see it anymore. It's down into the meat pretty good there. Everybody thinks working on Jeeps is all fun and games. Now I gotta come into the nurse. She fixing me up, don't you? Mm-hmm. Whew, that burns. I almost forgot. The most important part is this guy right here. And that I'm going to stick right here beside that shift pattern decal. So let's get her put in. Awesome. I've been wanting to put that sticker on for a long time now. Now that I finally actually have the overdrive right here installed. Sweet. Alrighty, guys and gals, there it is. I actually have it wiped down a little bit and drying. It's all siliconed, it's all seated down and bolted down. Everything moves in and out just fine. Basically, in another video, I'm going to show you how it drives and go from there. But this here was just a video installing the overdrive on this unit right here, my 1965 Jeep CJ5. Also look for another video. Gonna finally put the other hinge on here from Kentrol. But hope you found that video entertaining and interesting. Basically, this is how I installed an overdrive in my Jeep here. Hope you guys found this video helpful. It wasn't necessarily exact how-to video. Just wanted to show you how well it was for me to install this overdrive myself in the garage here with just common hand tools, and it really wasn't that bad of an install. It took me a little while, but yeah. Hope you enjoyed this video. And another video, look real soon. Gonna be showing how it drives and shifting down the road with it and splitting the gears. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing to the channel and hit that like button if you liked this video and found it helpful. So until next time, take care, keep safe, and happy wheeling.